Hello, it's Lindsay. It's October 16th, 2022. It's Sunday, and I'm going to do a video today about a topic that's a little bit touchy and controversial for most people, or narcissistic men at least. It's going to be something that they don't want to have to admit. If you are involved in a relationship, a romantic, intimate relationship with a narcissist male, these are some little surprises that you're going to find out as the relationship evolves. First of all, if he's a somatic narcissist or has somatic narcissistic traits, shall I say, which means that he's a sex addict or oversexed individual, that means that he's going to have an addiction to porno and prostitutes, call girls, escorts, whatever you want to call them. Maybe he's addicted to looking at Instagram things and giving women money. Okay, now I'm talking from my own experience here. In the past, I myself have had some boyfriends, a few relationships. Come to find out that, guess what? They even though they are quote unquote committed to you, your so-called boyfriend is committed to you, and you're in a so-called committed relationship. And if they're somatic narcissist, they're going to have they will, and they're going to keep it. They're going to try their best to keep this a secret from you, that they have a sex addiction, that they are addicted to porno, that they are addicted to these things. And why do they hide it? Because most of them feel a sense of shame and guilt about that. It's something that maybe they were addicted to in the past, something that they tried to overcome, and but they're working on themselves, or they realize that they wonder why they're not able to sustain a relationship for very long. And it's because once an individual, and this could be a female as well, females who are prostitutes or escorts, or the men who are even male escorts, but once they are involved in that industry, whatever you want to call it, it's a lifestyle of which they are never satiated with one person. Okay, so that's why people do the threesomes, the triangulation stuff, because they're always these individuals are always going to be looking for the better prize, the better catch, the better supply, whatever you want to call it. Okay, but they're always going to be looking. They're not going to be able to commit themselves to you for very long. You might think that, oh wow, look, we are in a committed relationship. This person tells me he loves me. He's buying me gifts. He spends every evening with me, or we go out on dates, and he treats me like a queen. Okay, he may be doing all these things that sound really wonderful, and that they feel good, because it's like a love bombing, an intense love bombing in the initial stages of these types of individuals. But slowly, that's going to end. That whole love bombing stage of the relationship, it's going to end, and it's gonna stop. That's only going to last for so long, because they're going to get tired of you. They're going to start devaluing you, degrading you, and comparing you with other women who they have been with, who were escorts or prostitutes or whatever. Because once they're addicted to sex and paying women to have sex with them, they're never gonna be satisfied with you as an individual intimately. They don't know how to have a true intimate connection. Most of these people, unless they've done a lot of work on themselves and they've accepted their past for what it is, and they've tried to work on themselves, and they know that they have this addiction to porno or escorts or whatever, it's going to be real hard to try to really have them open up to you. because of the shame. They do have a lot of shame, these people. Most of the time, that's why they start doing that, because they feel so inadequate that they don't think that they are long-term relationship material. A lot of them, and it's a sense of insecurity which they have that stems from their childhood, some kind of childhood trauma, probably neglect from their mother, or not enough attention, some kind of abuse, emotional abuse, or sexual abuse by a family member. It could be a lot of things. It could be something that the father inflicted on the child as a child that traumatized the young child, the boy. It varies, but usually when they have this kind of an addiction, a sex addiction or porno or whatever addiction in their adult years, it mostly does stem from a childhood trauma that was never discussed or dealt with in a manner of which that helped that person. And so whenever they're trying to hide that, they're gonna, when you meet this person, you may know them for several years and then discover this on down the line that they have this problem, because basically maybe they are forced to confess it. You force them to confess this because you know that something's going on. You notice that when you're intimate with that person, there's something a little bit off with them. They seem very robotic. Sometimes they are very, like intimacy with a narcissistic, somatic narcissist / sex addict is, it's not, it's an experience of which you don't feel very, you don't feel cared about, that they don't. And I guess that's how most people are. Most men, they want to have intimacy and they want it over with, right? And then they want to leave, or they want to roll over and go to bed if you live with that person. That's probably the way most men are, or a lot of men. And that is something that a lot of women complain about, because they don't feel like they're being caressed or cherished. They just feel that they're being used as an object. And so when these men have that addiction, they usually are going to treat the woman just like an object. She's an object. She's a sex object. She's nothing. Okay, I can have sex with that woman and then discard her like trash, and then move on to the next one because I'm paying these women. Okay, that's the way they start. If they keep on having this addiction and they continue this, that's how they view most women. You're going to find out that he could be a well-educated man. He could come from a good family. He could have a good background, or maybe not. It doesn't matter. The issue is that he has not dealt with some of his trauma from either a child or teenager or whatever, young adult years, of which has turned him into treating women in a degrading manner. In other words, viewing women as nothing but sex objects, and disrespecting women as human beings, as a female who's not. Nobody, I can't think of any female who's happy being treated like an object. Okay, unless she is in the adult industry working as a porno actress, or a dancer, adult stripper, or whatever, or an escort, call girl, whatever you want to call it. I don't think that most of these women have a lot of, I think deep down, a lot of them are they have a lot of damage. They feel damaged. They feel inadequate. They probably don't, that's what probably led them to that industry in the first place, because they have a lack of confidence. They didn't have a good. They probably had something that happened to them in their childhood. Obviously, probably they didn't have enough support from their father, or they didn't have a father figure, or whatever. That tends to be the situation with most females who choose that route, that field of work. And so men, knowing that these women are broken, or that they're kind of broken internally, or damaged, they're going to take it. They love to take advantage of that, obviously. And the women, so desperate for love and affection and real love, probably they deep down want that. A lot of them, they're going to let these men just step all over them. They don't seem to care. And maybe they've gotten to the point where they do the same thing to these men. I don't know. I'm not in that industry, but I've been around it before. I've seen bits and pieces of it in the way years ago, working as a cocktail waitress and briefly working as a dancing, long time ago, but that was all very brief. And that was just something that I regretted. It was something that was not definitely something I didn't enjoy, because I realized how horrible I felt at the end of after dancing on a stage naked or half naked for a bunch of sleazy men, most of them. I did that very briefly, and I didn't, that was back in the day, and that was only something that I experimented with because I was curious. But I didn't like it. I didn't like the way it made me feel. I felt degraded. I felt humiliated. I felt embarrassed, ashamed, degraded. Those are just a few of the words I can say about how that made me feel, of doing that kind of dancing, whatever. But it's a shame, I think, that people have to go to that level. I wonder why some people, well, everybody's got a story, right? Everybody's got their reasons why, but I do think that that women especially are very we live in a misogynistic society. Like, we live in a society of which women are still very much downgraded and disrespected, not valued as much because maybe income or whatever, and so it's very unequal. It's not balanced. And now it's getting better, obviously, but still women are treated like second-class citizens, third-class citizens in a first-world country. And that hasn't really changed much. Yeah, there's been a lot of progress, but still, I believe that women are very much frowned upon by a lot of society, especially. It's not fair because women are judged on their past so much, right? We get judged and called whores and this, that, and the other for our past. Yet you men, for the men who have been with whatever, it's a challenge. It's a game for them, and it's a lot of inequality in the whole when you're dealing with the whole sexual aspect of relationships and people judging you based on your past, because we all do that. We're all going to find something about when you're in the dating arena and you're in your 30s or 40s, people wonder, well, why are you single and why are you, you don't have kids and why are you not married? Well, some people don't want to have kids. Some people choose to be single. Some people enjoy that. But in general, there's a lot of societal pressure to have a child, to be married, to fit in and to be a whatever. And some people just can't do that. Some people, it's just not their thing. Some people, it's just not something that they ever gravitated towards for whatever reason, and that's perfectly fine. They shouldn't be judged based on that. But a lot of different cultures, like let's say, for example, the Hispanic culture, they're very judgmental about this kind of thing. The Asian culture as well is a lot. If a woman is above age 30 and she's not married yet with no kids, and she's basically treated differently in society in a lot of these cultures, and she's not she's. And I know, I mean, it just depends on the culture, okay? In the U.S., it's a little bit different. Thank God, we don't have as many of those issues as say, Thailand or Mexico or other countries, South American countries, where women are just discarded after a while because they're not they didn't do the conformist type thing. And men as well, if they didn't conform to what society expected them in their culture, then they are, more or less looked down upon in a lot of ways by through the eyes of society. That's just the way it is. But anyway, back to the men who have a porno addiction, men who are somatic narcissists, or at least with these kinds of traits as a somatic narcissist, and the women as well. They're never going to be satisfied with just one person. They can't commit to one person. They're going to compare you to whoever it is that they slept with, who was a paid prostitute, and they're going to expect that you are like that person. It's messed up. I could go on and on, but yeah, you might find these things out at some point in the relationship that oh wow, this person was involved. They'll tell you all of a sudden. You'll find out that they were addicted to escorts, hiring escorts or prostitutes to fulfill their needs, and they've maybe never been in a long-term relationship that lasted more. They've never really experienced a true committed long-term relationship because of their addiction to paying for sex. And it can be quite a shot. It can be quite a challenge because in your mind that, well, okay, how is this going to ever manifest into something substantial when you know that they have that addiction. They might say they no longer have that addiction, that they're not doing that anymore. But especially if you're dealing with a long-term relationship or somebody who you don't see that often, you have to kind of wonder. You kind of have that suspicion of what are they doing, and are they, it's going to be because narcissists cheat. They're going to lie. They lie and they cheat on you. If you think you're in a committed relationship, think again if you're dealing with somebody with these kinds of traits, somatic narcissism and covert narcissism. These individuals tend to very much be pathological liars, serial cheaters, and they, what else? They basically, they're going to lead you on. They do a lot of future faking, love bombing, and then you get discarded, and then all of a sudden they start degrading you, devaluation, and that's it, right? Then the next thing you know, the relationship is pretty much over, but then they might come back to hoover you and lure you back in if you fall for the hoovering. You see, you're also in control of what happens. You since you know who you're dealing with, you're the one they're expecting you to put it to a stop. They're not going to do it usually. You're the one who must have to discard them first, usually, or unless you're somebody who's able to put up with that kind of crap, that kind of emotional abuse, which it is. It is emotional abuse when you know that you're being valued like an object, like a sex object, or somebody who, it can be a bit very degrading. Yeah, so whatever, but once they have that addiction, once you know that their past has to do with hiring sex workers, you can pretty much count on them probably still having that kind of addiction at some point in the relationship, or I don't know. Most of the time, they're gonna still have that kind of problem. So it's going to be really hard to trust them. It's going to be really hard to, because they can't be trusted. They can't. They're going to go out. They're going to go out and they're going to find some new person while you're away from them. They will do this to you because they're going to do that. You can pretty much believe that they're going to do something like that, especially if they think that you don't know about them, that they're going to try to get away with everything. But I'd be really careful dealing with a narcissistic male who's a sex addict. they're dangerous and they are predatory. They're fake. They lie, and they use people. They use you. They use you for resources, for sex, for attention. They're using you for something, probably sex, most likely. Unless they've had a complete change and turnaround in who they are and they've done work on themselves, I wouldn't expect much out of that relationship. I wouldn't expect hardly anything, as a matter of fact. You're going to find that you're the one who's putting more effort into it. Meanwhile, you are being treated like a doormat, a sex object. So that's that for now.